Hello and welcome. My name is Thomas Kevin Dolan. I am the author and writer of Little Fag, A Journey of Self-Acceptance and Healing. And today I'm going to read chapter 5 entitled Striving for Flawlessness. It begins on page 33 of my book. According to Brené Brown, perfectionism is a self-destructive and addictive belief system that fuels this primary thought. If I look perfect and I do everything perfect, I can avoid or minimize the painful feelings of shame, judgment, and blame. I battled my eldest brother for the title of perfect in our family. I realize now the idea that someone was perfect in my family was a way of granting them permission to pretend they were the best. They were the king or queen of the castle. That thinking was immature and toxic. The Dolan family really felt it held some prominence in the fabric of Calgary's culture. Nothing could be further from the truth. By sheer volume, with many of the 9 excelling at athletics, the Dolans were known in the local sporting community. Hockey, football, a smattering of softball, and perhaps track and field at junior and senior high school levels were the Dolans' forte. As contributor to the fabric of Calgary's cultural community, we offered little. We were so busy hiding all the nasty secrets, we felt that the only way for the Dolans to endure was to pretend we were perfect. Brené Brown goes on to share, perfectionism is self-destructive simply because there is no such thing as perfect. Perfection is an unattainable goal. Additionally, perfectionism is more about perception. You want to be perceived as perfect. Again, this is unattainable. There is no way to control perception, regardless of how much time and energy we spend trying. My oldest brother and I would taunt each other, often viciously, sniping, "You're not perfect, you know." It was our way of letting each other know that we were hiding from each other and the world. It was far easier to pretend to be perfect than to share our secrets. He was an alcoholic, I was gay. What I braved. Imagine hearing your parents tell you, as a gay child, that they can't wait for you to grow up, fall in love with that special girl, get married, and have children. Mom and Dad, without knowing it, became my greatest abusers. Since I wasn't that kind of boy, their heterosexual boy, the story I made up was if they found out who I really was, they wouldn't love me. Thinking I was safe from their prodding about my heterosexual future, the church also began a similar rhetoric. From the pulpit, I'd hear that Jesus would hate me if he knew I was gay. All gay people, at least in the 1960s, were headed for hell. Add to that the pressure of not being able to escape the idea of folks thinking I was straight. At school, I hated that teachers always forced me to dance with girls. I could see now how I use silence as a means to disappear. If I'm quiet enough or make sure no one sees me, they'll never tell me their stories of my prince and princess future. Nor will I have to tell them those are not my stories. It was amazing how well, as a little boy, I could take care of myself. Here's the challenge with having no voice and disappearing. As I matured, I suddenly realized the strategy of silence didn't really work, especially in my grown-up world. I was bright. I was curious. I really wanted to throw in my 2 cents worth, or more on a lot of topics. Saying nothing as an adult wasn't working for me anymore. Add to that, viewing life through a gay lens in a predominantly straight family and heterosexist culture is exhausting. The lies, the half-truths, the implicit checks and balances take enormous amounts of energy to hold or withhold. I felt afraid most of my life. The pretense of perfection was a great ploy. Be the perfect little boy, the nicest, the kindest, the politest, so named by my best friend's mom, and the most athletic. Have the shiniest shoes, the best hair, be the best dressed, and especially be the best Catholic. If I could be all these iterations of perfect, there wasn't a chance they would discover my biggest imperfection, being gay. After coming out, I began in 1988 to inch towards healthy striving, which is self-focused and away from perfectionism, which is other-focused, or what will they think? For the first time, I was able to breathe. What I braved in my life, finally, at the stage and age of 29, was letting go of who I thought the world wanted me to be, and instead choosing to embrace who I was. The unlearning. I was that little boy in elementary school who peed his pants. It was terrifying for me to put up my hand and ask to go to the bathroom. It was hard to understand that an adult, my teacher, actually cared about me. After many episodes of peeing my pants at my desk and suffering the shame and humiliation of my classmates, my teacher took me aside and let me know I could leave the classroom without raising my hand if I needed to pee. It helped, yet it was still scary to simply leave the class without asking for permission. What I really needed was for my teacher to see that I may be struggling, which would have helped me feel I was cared for, and ask me if I needed to go to the bathroom. Neither of my parents ever asked why I wet my bed. With the sheets being soaked wet, how could they not know I was wetting my bed? The silence born of my mom was very shaming, and the story I made up was that she didn't care. She didn't care about me. There was an adult in my life who ever asked how I was feeling. The violence of my drunk dad beating my mom, my brothers, then beating dad as they came to mom's rescue, the sexual abuse I suffered along with the chances that my older siblings experienced the same fate, all contributed to the abuse at home. Most of it took place at night, which made it terrifying to get out of bed. So I didn't. Today, as I spend time with my nieces and nephews, and now my grandnieces and grandnephews, I marvel at how loved they are by their parents. I find myself remembering how little I was allowed to experience childhood. Although I wasn't encouraged to be a kid, I was encouraged to pretend like I was one. The one I chose to be was the perfect kid. I uttered few words, asked for nothing, spent time alone, and even when I felt unwell, Mom wouldn't know. The perfect kid had it all together. As I grew, I always looked for opportunities to escape the influence of my family. There were friends I had that my family didn't know about. They were my teachers of play. They were my escape into childlike ways. The unlearning came for me with the knowledge or the inkling, especially as an elementary school boy, that my family wasn't interested in my growth. The familial bond, that blanket of security and encouragement to be all I could be, was not something I'd get from my family. As I approached the high school many of my older siblings attended, I made a vow to go to a different high school. That choice launched me into a different trajectory, one that saved my life. Whew. I remember writing that chapter, and I remember the challenge of tying it all together. At least I think I tied it together. But as I reflect on this notion of trajectory in life, where I thought I could go, where I thought I couldn't go, but mostly this idea of not having a voice. Particularly when I watched other little kids in my classroom have a voice, bravely raise their hand and even ask a question, even braver more, to say that they had to go to the bathroom. Never was that encouraged, right? We were to be quiet. If something changed from the time I went to school, meaning that we had a telephone when I went to school, by the time I got home from school, there was no telephone or television, whichever it is that I said. My point is this: there were times I'd go to school, we had a telephone, we had a television. There were times when I came home after school, there was no telephone, there was no television. We could never ask why. I could never use my voice. Imagine the curiosity being drilled out of you so that apparent vacancy could never be spoken of. It was ridiculous. So that was the foundation of not ever being encouraged to have a voice. And even thinking, right, I had friends that had amazing voices. I really disliked that they had amazing voices. Because of course, remember, as an adult child of an alcoholic, right, the abnormal became normal. So for me, the abnormal of not having a voice, right, was normal. I wasn't supposed to have one. So when I had friends that have a voice, which was normal, particularly for the curiosity of a child, that was completely foreign to me. And I think I probably strayed away from kids that had that voice because I thought I wasn't supposed to have one. At least not in the Dolan household. So more wackiness, right? More abnormal I thought was normal. And I would eventually, and thankfully today, as you can tell, I have a voice, right? I have a voice and I know how to use it. And I know as my teacher who's encouraging me to learn more about how to use this voice of mine, it's called the Stage Academy. And this really powerful teacher, his first name is Vin. One of the things he was taught initially, and the story is this, he came into kind of voice class, or maybe it was music class. Anyways, his teacher was sitting with her back to him, and all she was playing was one note on the piano. One note, over and over and over and over and over. Until finally she turned to him and said, "How does that sound?" And he said, "It is actually kind of weird. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm afraid in this room with you playing one note, kind of like a spooky horror movie." And then she bust into a full, and I'm not remembering the song that she played, but he references 3.5 minutes of being serenaded with this beautiful song. And it stopped, and she turned around and said, "How was that?" And he said, "Oh, it was so beautiful, so, so beautiful." And she did this. She said, "Do you want to move through life, ding, 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 as a one-note person? Or do you want to play all 88 keys on the piano? Do you want to play the full song of life?" And of course, when I heard him tell that story, it reminded me of the encouragement I had to be a one-note person, or in fact, no notes. So today, as I learn, right, to play the 88 keys of my voice and to play within the 88 keys of what life presents, I feel so blessed. I feel so blessed to have really, and this may sound a bit strange, to have had that experience of being a one-note child or no-note child and learn what it is that I've learned and be able to share the lessons from you and probably be able to write a book, which is another way to have a voice. But I'm most proud of, I'm most proud of, and I'm most proud of today having 88 keys and being able to use those to express in my life.